right, the DA Shadow Minister of Higher Education, Chantel King, now joins us for this conversation. A very good evening to you, and thanks so very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Good evening yourself and to your viewers as well.
All right, let's start then by talking to us then about these criminal charges that the DA plans to lay against the Minister of Higher Education, and how, you got to this particular decision to take this particular route.
What led us to this was the recordings that was made available from OUTA side, where it was clear that there was a third party who was actually running the affairs of NSFAS, and also that it was mentioned that money was paid towards the minister. They are willing to still pay him some extra money, and also that his party, the SACP, then received money. This is a clear indictment from the voice recordings that NSFAS money is being used to fund political activity, which is totally against what the minister should be standing for. And on that basis, we are actually taking the minister to court, both based on his involvement as well as Ernest Khosa's involvement, unless they can prove otherwise that the leaked recordings has not taken place and there was no meeting as such.
I'm sure you've been following on the many stories that we hear from student bodies, from students about some of the issues that they've been having with relations to payments linked to NSFAS. What do you believe to be at the root of the problems at NSFAS? Do you believe that it can be simplified and put simply just as being an issue of corruption, the issue of what we're hearing, of course, now, kickbacks and, the SACP, as you now talking to us about, the SACP receiving monies? Is it that basic an issue? Or, have you now, as I suppose you're looking into this, found, more to it than just that being the basic issue of corruption?
That is but one of the issues. I basically asked a parliamentary question as well when it came to light of Mr. Andile Nongogo's involvement with the direct payment services contracts. Has there any criminal charges or investigation taking place with the services seaters where Mr. Andile Nongogo was first employed? And the response then came back to say they have not seen any need to lodge any investigation. For me, this is worrisome because if you get a report that Andile Nongogo came from a system where already he was involved in some criminal activities for siphoning money, surely you would investigate the trail of where the money comes from. And also do a proper investigation and extend the scope of the investigation, which is currently taking place through the SIU. But unfortunately, this has not happened. And this is now leading us to force the minister's hand first to release the Werksman's report, but also to extend the scope of the SIU through the president so that we get to the root cause of this corruption and how deep the syndicate truly is, because it is clear that it's not only the one contract, there are numerous contracts within NSFAS, but there are also corruption that is escalating within the sector at various institutions, as we saw with the Blade Nzimande institution, we saw with University of Fort Hare what is going on. So it is not only a NSFAS issue, but it's a rooted issue.
Yeah, what are you hoping to get out of the Worksman's report? We do understand that the DA will be requesting, under the Promotion of Access to Information Act to obtain the copy of that particular report. What do you think, is in there that would be, for lack of a better word, useful to you and the case you want to pursue?
Well, it was told by Mr. Ernest Khosa that the Werksman's report implicated some other senior officials at NSFAS. These names have not been forthcoming. We don't know the extent of their involvement in certain contracts with the supply chain management systems at NSFAS. So that is what we actually want to uncover as well. Besides the issue, of Mr. Andile Nkoko. Also, the Werksman report indicated that the 4 direct payment service providers contracts must be terminated, and to date they still have not been terminated, and they still continue dispersing funds, or lack of a better word, dispersing funds to students, and that is what we need to find out. Why has it not been terminated?
All right, well, the minister has indeed responded, and he's basically rubbished, anything that the DA itself is saying, but also rubbished any reports that he's linked to the chairperson of NSFAS or anybody related to corruption at NSFAS. And he's in fact gone a step further to say he's not going to resign. How do you respond to that? In fact, the DA had actually said you want to see him get fired, but he's saying he's not going to resign. But, how do you respond to that?
Well, it's nothing new from Minister Blade Nzimande. His arrogance also shines through. But if you recall, we called the minister and NSFAS to report to us before the committee at one stage. And the minister said he's not coming. He gave NSFAS chairperson and the board an instruction not to come to the portfolio committee. When they did eventually show up at the portfolio committee, he was so angry with the chairperson and the portfolio committee for constantly calling NSFAS to the portfolio committee, indicating that we are overstepping our mandate. Already that shows that the minister was not forthcoming when it comes to the issues of NSFAS. He was actually trying to buy some time in order to avoid that the issues of NSFAS actually come to the fore. And we actually commend OUTA for actually pushing for these investigations, because now the other issue that's going to come up is the issue of the direct accommodation service providers, where we also found out that there are people, they are accrediting agents, but they also have accommodation themselves. So how do you accredit yourself and give yourself better offers in the long run? We also have people that actually never actually got the contract, and then they were put back onto the contract to receive the contract eventually. That raises questions. So Minister Nzimande should actually welcome the involvement of civil society to call out the corruption that is taking place within any entity or state organ, and actually work with them to root out systemic corruption within his departments.
Yeah. All right. And if nothing, comes out of, the action that you're pursuing now, whether it be the criminal charges or, seeking more information from the Werksman's report, what further steps do you believe are available to you?
Well, this needs then to go to a proper court of law. The minister needs to account for his action. Proper criminal charges needs to be laid against the minister and against the board of NSFAS, not only Ernest Khosa. Because at the end of the day, we cannot have rogue ministers being law unto themselves. They are responsible to the Republic of South Africa, and many students actually depend on this to further their lives and livelihood within South Africa, and this also helps us to decrease the unemployment level. So for me, Minister Nzimande, should he be found guilty, criminal charges must be laid against him, and we must start to make an example of politicians who actually defraud the very same entities they're supposed to protect.
All right, Chantel King, many thanks to you for joining us here on SABC News. That is the DA Shadow Minister of Higher Education, speaking to us there on the back, of course, of the DA planning to lay criminal charges against the Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimande.